To quote the great Phyllis Vance from The Office, what in God's name is going on? Because that's what was basically going on this weekend. Welcome back to Shut Up and Ball, Week 11 reactions. That's what I was doing, John. I don't know about you, but another wild weekend. I feel like I'm saying that every week. But regardless, besides your Cowboys, how was your weekend?
It was all right. It was an entertaining week of football. I was one of the unfortunate people who had to face Jonathan Taylor in fantasy, so that wasn't fun. I lost. But yeah, other than that, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I had Jonathan Taylor, which we'll go over him and everything there. Had him in two leagues. I actually had him and Eckler in one league. It was obviously I won that league, so it was amazing. But anyways, yeah, like we mentioned, crazy week fantasy wise, but also actual NFL wise as well. So we're just gonna dive right into that, starting with the Thursday night game: Patriots 25, Falcons 0. Another skunking for the Patriots. So I'm just gonna throw it right to you, John. What were your thoughts in regards to what occurred here?
I mean, the Patriots, they're looking really good. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I think a lot of people have really already said it. If you've heard the Patriots, I mean, they've become one of the more talked about teams in the league recently because they've won like five straight. And now I believe they're sitting on top of their division at 7-4. So, I'm they're back. I mean, it's Bill Belichick. I love Cam Newton, but ultimately Cam is just not the kind of quarterback that fits in their system. And also, they just didn't really have the weapons that they needed last year. We saw they went out and spent big, and they got a quarterback who fits in their system perfectly. And here they are atop their own division once again. So we'll see if they can continue that on the year because it's obviously still got a lot of football left to be played, and the Bills are right behind them. But ultimately, I mean, yeah, the Falcons looked pretty terrible the week before, and they look pretty terrible once again in this one. And on the other side, Patriots looked really good.
Yeah. Just to add on your point about Mac Jones, I mean, we're seeing. I think it's obvious they wanted a consistent thrower, and that's what they have in Mac Jones. They have a good old line. We always know they're going to find running backs to make to make the running game work. Right now it's Ramondre Stevenson. Who knows how long he'll be the guy? There'll probably be some other unnamed guy in their playoff run. But yeah, it's. I think the biggest thing is, like you mentioned, just their offense is a little bit more consistent this year, and then also their defense. They added a bunch of new pieces last year and this offseason. Kind of seeing them starting to really gel together, and I think I mentioned it last podcast. Not sure, but yeah, last year their weakness was being run against because they lost a lot of personnel on the D line, but they built that back up already via free agency and the draft. So yeah, I mean, not too surprised in regards to the talking more of the Falcons. I mean, no weapons really. I mean, haven't had Calvin Ridley all year. Now you don't have Cordero Patterson, who they've been basically building their offense kind of around, been their main playmaker. So it's all on a rookie Kyle Pitts at tight end, and especially against Bill Belichick, it was tough sledding. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think Patriots are probably I don't want to say the best team in the AFC, but I mean, just by recent recency, yeah, like you mentioned, like five straight, had some tough games too. Played your Cowboys tough, almost won that one, and same thing with Tampa. So yeah, Patriots quietly rolling here in the AFC, and Bill Belichick slowly but surely making his way back into the playoff picture, which I'm sure many fans and teams will enjoy, which is sarcastic. But anyways, good win for them. Took care of business against the Falcons. Shout out to the Falcons fans who were commenting on our Falcons preseason review. Listen, where you at? I'm just sorry. Like you're 4-6 right now. It's tough. I mean, you said you would go 10-6, even though it's 17 games. You got a lot of work to do. So we'll see. Anyways, now moving on to Sunday, and we'll start right away with the main game. If you played fantasy, either if you played against him, you hated it. If you had him, you loved it. Jonathan Taylor, 5 touchdowns to beat the Bills for the Colts. Sorry, so Colts win 41-15 going into Buffalo and beating them. Definitely one of the shockers for the weekend. So, John, what were your thoughts in regards to JT's amazing performance and really the Bills just falling flat.
First off, I want to apologize to every fantasy owner out there because there's really only one explanation for what happened this week, and that's in one of my main leagues. I kept Stephon Diggs over Jonathan Taylor, and Jonathan Taylor clearly was really mad about that, and so he destroyed me with 5 touchdowns, whatever total yards he was. It was almost 200, and I lost by a lot. So yeah, that happened. But in this game, I don't know. I was pretty surprised. I think both of us picked the Bills to win, but at the same time, I think both of us felt like with how many upsets were happening over the last few weeks that maybe this could be one, especially with the Colts like starting to figure things out and Jonathan Taylor's really turned it on. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, Carson Wentz, he threw only 20 times and had like 100 yards passing, and they put up 41 points. Like that, which I know that like, they got some easy field position on some turnovers, but at the same time, like it just shows to the Jonathan Taylor, like he is really carrying this team. He had 185 yards rushing, like and 19 yards receiving. So he actually did have over 200 yards in the whole game. Like he's put the team on his back so far. I think if they can keep riding this wave, especially with the way their defense is playing, I mean, they showed up big time in this one as well. Yeah, they put up 41 points, but once again, you got some easy field position off of a couple of turnovers, and you held the Bills to only 15 points. I think that combination of a really solid run game and then their defense is playing well has allowed Carson Wentz to not even really have to put the ball in harm's way, which was something that we saw. He was playing some more risky football earlier in the year, and that was leading to some close games being lost. And so now he's just able to be confident, rely on his defense, rely on the run game, and make the throws that he needs to make, and they're winning because of it. So the Colts have quietly become a team to watch here, especially with Titans. They finally lost after the Derrick Henry injury, and so we'll have to see how that continues. But they're not too far behind, honestly, when it comes to that division race right there. And for the Bills, this one just sucks because, like we talked about, the Patriots, they're really catching their rhythm right now.
Yeah, and you were right, because I realized I just nodded on the video, and there's some people don't watch the video. Patriots 7-4, Bills 6-4 now, so Patriots technically have a game lead, although they still have their bye. But yeah, in regards to this, I also have a funny story fantasy wise. I think I may have told you this. So my 2 quarterback league, we just changed to 2 quarterback. I also had to pick a keeper. It was really between Kyler Murray and Jonathan Taylor. I went with the running back just for sure thing. First few weeks wasn't looking great, and obviously now, especially with Kyler missing the previous few weeks, it's been great. But in regards to Colts, it's just like you said. I mean, it's like that. I don't know why it took so long, Frank Reich, to finally just trust in his offensive line. Granted, it took them a while to get healthy. Now they have Eric Fisher back. I know they missed Quentin Nelson. I think he got injured in this game. But yeah, like leaning on Jonathan Taylor, which really what you did the last half of last season, and you had great success. So yeah, I was surprised it finally happened now, but we saw the results of what happened. And then for Buffalo, yeah, I mean, kind of a game where, especially when your defense is just not having a good day, you'd wish that you had maybe a little bit of a run game or just something to give your defense a break, have a long drive, have Carson and Frank Reich maybe abandon the run game or something of the sort. Just regardless, it's too much on Josh Allen. As good as he was last year, we all know he has moments where he's going to make a mistake, going to force the issue. And it happened a couple times this game. As Colts score early, then he throws a pick on their very next drive, and then the Colts score again. But also just other things. I mean, missed a field goal, at the end of half to make it 24-10, and then they punt 3 and out, and then they get the ball again later, still 24-7, and then they miss another field goal. So goes to show, NFL, it's so cliche, but the little things, those mistakes, missed field goals, turnovers, you can't. It's so hard to overcome against any solid team. So yeah, Buffalo, we'll have to see if they can get some sort of run game or something added to their offense, because it's basically all on Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. And teams have kind of caught on to that from last year. Cole Beasley's not as good as he was last year. Gabriel Davis seems to have taken a step back, and Emmanuel Sanders hasn't been consistent, which someone of his age probably to be expected of. So, yeah, AFC, man, we'll probably talk about him more. It's getting more and more just random and wild, and I feel like every team not named Houston, I think Houston's and the Jets are in the mix for this. I'm trying to think of a team. I
The
can't think of
Jags.
the Jags. Sorry, those three teams. Other than those three teams, really, like the entire AFC West is still in. Somehow, and then the entire AFC North is basically still in the mix. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But for the Colts, like John mentioned, another team like the Patriots been on a roll recently and looking to carry that momentum going forward. And for the Bills, they got some things to work out. So, but speaking of the AFC North, Baltimore Ravens, no Lamar Jackson, no problem. They escape a win against the Chicago Bears, beating them 16-13. It was Tyler Huntley leading a drive at the end to win the game. Saw some Andy Dalton this game. Justin Fields left to injury. Saw some Bears fans calling for Matt Nagy's head. John, what are your thoughts in regards to this whole game?
I mean, it's always great when you can get your backup quarterback in there and you still win the game, because you just probably expect that to be an L. And for the Ravens, who are jockeying with all the different teams in the AFC for those top spots, and then even have a division that's not fully locked up because all the other three teams are still technically in the race. Um, it's an important win, but I think, yeah, the thing you said at the end there's the key is that there was calls for Matt Nagy to be fired, and now all of a sudden all these reports are coming out that a lot of Bears players reportedly are very unhappy with Matt Nagy, and they want him to be gone. At the Bulls versus, I don't know who they played in the NBA game the other
They
night, but
lost that game too. I think I don't think it was in the Jazz or the Sixers. I'm forgetting, but I know what you mean. There's also
regardless, yeah, Bulls fans were chanting fire Nagy. So everyone pretty much wants him fired. There was a report that he had been informed that he was going to be fired like at the end of the year. He says that report is false. So we'll see what happens. At this point, I don't know how you don't fire him if like the whole city, multiple different sports, like your fans are chanting for him to be gone. Reportedly, like I said, a lot of players want him out. Like that, it just seems like he's lost the locker room. And I think the only reason he has been fired yet is the Bears have never fired a coach mid-season. They've always waited till the end. And so I think they'll give him at least the respect of, finishing out the year, but I think he's probably gone.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, I wouldn't be shocked if they break that tradition because this team's just way too talented. We've seen them. I mean, they snuck into the playoffs. Was it last year with Trubisky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they got the 1 year when they had their really good run that the double doink happened. But and once again, I don't mean ill will upon Matt Nagy the person, his family and such. But it's just like he said, it's just time's up, man. You've had two talented roster. You've had Khalil Mack, a pretty good defense set, and then offense. You've had Allen Robinson. I mean, David Montgomery's been solid. You've had, although Tariq Cohen has been playing this year, he's been a weapon, and you've had opportunities, you've had resources, and yeah, it's time to go. I mean, a game like this with no Lamar Jackson, we just mentioned last week how this Ravens team as a team is just not as good as it has been in previous years. Leaned a lot more on Lamar, especially on offense, and like you said, John, it's just with the backup quarterback, kind of like you expect to win against the other team's backup quarterback, and it didn't happen. So, yeah, I'm with those Bears fans. Like we've been basically the whole season. It's time for change, especially with Justin Fields. You want to see him develop more, and maybe you also want, like you just mentioned. I mean, the players are upset and want him out. You don't want, especially if he does work out, you don't want him to leave just because you soured the first year or two of his stay in Chicago. I'll be interested to see last point on the Bears going forward. We should see what happens with Allen Robinson because once again, kind of a quiet name. He was franchise tag, and now I think he's dealing with an injury. So yeah, if you want a reliable weapon for your franchise quarterback, it's gonna be interesting if they bring a head coach to maybe somehow, which I really think he's gone because he wanted to trade last season. But it'd be interesting if they bring in a head coach or a GM that tries to keep him there so that they have something for Justin Fields to build on. But
I would say too that like Another reason why I'm like 100% sure Nagy's going to get fired is he kind of botched the whole Justin Fields situation. I don't know if it was the GM or him, whoever promised Andy Dalton that he was going to be the starter. And you get it because at the time they weren't aware that they would have the opportunity to trade up for Fields, but they did it. And I can't imagine that they didn't have a plan in place if the opportunity came up that they were going to. I have to imagine they planned for that, right? If if Fields or Mac or whoever it was falls to this spot, we're going to trade up and get him. And they did it. And so, once again, I don't have a problem with them promising Andy Dalton the job, but then the way that Nagy handled it, it just seemed like Fields became the starter because that's probably what the owner wanted and not necessarily what Nagy wanted, because he never really committed to him. And then once he became the starter, he said, Andy Dalton's still our guy. He's still going to be the starter. Then all of a sudden, randomly one day, he just came out and said, Justin's the starter for the rest of the year. And that it just seemed very contrary to what he was saying the whole time.
Yeah, it's the whole promise thing. I don't have an issue with it, but I mean, technically, they when you give some of these quarterbacks a big contract, you're promising them that you're the guy, and then they cut off. Like it's just weird how they draw the line between business and personal. Like obviously, they'll cut someone,
Right.
cutthroat that's been there for a long time or something just because their contract. But then, like you were verbally promised, like is it in his contract that he has to be the starter? I just don't understand. Um,
Yeah,
they
like
could have gone back on their word. Like no one would have
why
been.
even say that though? It's
Yeah,
not
like
like
why are
you
you
were in
putting?
some hot bidding war for Andy Dalton.
Yeah. So yeah, and I don't want to criticize the GM because it's just hard to determine exactly who's the problem. But maybe he needs to go too. Maybe they just need to clean the front office and bring in something new. New GM, new head coach. I don't know, but yeah, Bears are a mess. They should have. Although it was a close game, they should have won this game regardless, even with Justin Fields or Andy Dalton at quarterback. Those are both. We can all agree both those guys are better than Tyler Huntley. And then, like we mentioned before, Ravens. Not a great team talent wise, but credit the coaching staff. They love to win these ugly type games, and they went and did that at Chicago as well, and had to wait till Sunday morning to figure out if Lamar was going to be ready. So, good win for the Ravens, like we mentioned, needed in that AFC title playoff race. But keeping it in their division, actually both these divisions, AFC and NFC North. Uh, Cleveland Browns faced off against the Detroit Lions at Cleveland. Another close game, but the Browns managed to hold on 13-10. Almost looked like the Lions were going to come back there for a second, but the Browns held on. John, what were your thoughts in regards to what occurred here?
For the Lions, not surprised. The Lions, they had backup QB. As much as we talk about Jared Goff and how he's not amazing, he's still better than his backup by far. And so that didn't surprise me at all. Especially DeAndre Swift, he's going to do what he does, and that's kind of all they have. But the Browns, once again, I just keep saying it, they're just incredibly disappointing, especially with certain guys becoming healthy over the last few weeks, like Nick Chubb. You just think that they would do better. Nick Chubb gets 130 yards on the ground, and you only have 13 points to show for it. That's just not good enough. And Baker Mayfield, 176 yards on the whole game, one touchdown, but two picks. That's once again just not good enough. I know that he's hurt, but you're supposed to be the franchise guy. You're a formal number one overall pick. I know that you won, but it's the Detroit Lions, and this isn't college, so there's no style points or anything. It doesn't really matter. Like a win's a win, but you'd still hope that you could put up a better fight.
Yeah, I kind of went the way I thought it would be. Much worse for Cleveland. I think I picked Detroit to cover. Um, but yeah, I think we're starting to see. I'm not saying they needed Odell, but we'll see going forward. But we'll see if Cleveland, if a team can slow down the run game, can they pass their way? Go five wide, or even just pass their way to a victory if they need to, like in the second half. We'll see. But for the Lions, I mean, like you said, not really shocked. Backup quarterback, and not much of a talented roster to begin with. So I don't have much else to really add. You really can't hit on the head there. Not much to add in regards to that one. But keeping it on the track of boring / almost upsets. Well, this one was an upset. Houston Texans beat Tennessee Titans 22-13. I think we finally had our Titans coming to earth. After Derrick Henry injury game, we finally had the loss. So yeah, and Tannehill had, I think, 4 interceptions. I believe he did not have a great day in the office. Regardless, John, do you have any thoughts in regards to what happened here?
Uh, I mean, yeah, it's just this is we knew that at some point there'd be a game where Tannehill was forced to throw a lot, and this was the game. He threw 50 times and 52 times, and he had 4 interceptions because of it. He overall, besides that, didn't have a terrible game, like 35, 52, 300 and something yards. So like he still had decent stuff, but he just turned the ball over because that's he's not the guy who's going to go out there and get you 5 touchdowns. He's not the guy who's going to carry your team to a victory. He plays within the system, and the system is built around Derrick Henry. He's not there, and this is what we expected to happen. I wouldn't be shocked if this continues for different parts of the rest of the year. I still think the Titans are a very talented team, but ultimately teams they're gonna force them to throw, and they're not gonna allow their run game and these guys who they're filtering in and out to get going at all. I know Adrian Peterson just got cut today, so the running back room has become you know, even I would say less talented, even though AP's like, he's 36, 37, somewhere around there. They're just not really, they don't have a lot back there. And so I don't know. We'll see what the Titans can do. But yeah, this is what I expected.
A little bit of a bad luck game for them too. I mean, they had a muff punt go off Chester Rogers' foot, put Houston right in close territory. I mean, for the most part, Houston probably could have won this game by more. I mean, just all the turnovers and such. So give a little bit of credit to Tennessee's defense, which has been the reason they've been staying afloat since the Derrick Henry injury. But yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, this game too much was put on Ryan Tannehill, especially without Julio Jones probably there to help out. And give credit to Houston. I mean, defense it's not amazing, but their defense is solid, and I think especially since we mentioned similar front offices, both from New England, I'm sure they had a feel for what was going on in the Tennessee passing game. So yeah, definitely. Finally, maybe like we mentioned, finally the game where Tennessee's like, man, we need Derrick Henry this game to win this one. So we'll see if it affects them going forward, and yeah, if they can still make it in the playoffs. But
They play New England next week, so
that's not
that's a
good.
tough attempt at a bounce back game.
Yeah, but who knows? Like random, like I don't know if you remember New England, like Matt Patricia's first year, they lost to Matt Patricia and the Lions. Like and now it's like
Yeah.
with Tom Brady and them, so it's really weird. Like his assistants always, they always have a close game or something of the sort. It's just
I
weird.
mean, Mike Vrabel's gotten the better of him in the
Yeah,
past. Remember that one where he had like the creative stuff to like run the clock out with certain penalties or whatever.
yeah. He Bill
But
Belichick because Bill did that I think earlier the year too.
yeah, but we just saw what Bill was able to do against the Falcons, who are without a lot of their key playmakers.
Yeah,
And, well, I don't know how much success because I think even AJ Brown like missed some parts of this game against the
okay,
Texans. Julio's on IR. So like they might be without everybody.
yeah. So I mean, yeah. Listen, I'm not saying I'm not picking New England. I'm just saying who knows. I'll
Yeah.
be interested to see a spread. Um, but anyways. Now going to the NFC North showdown, probably the best game of the early slot for sure. Um, my Green Bay Packers lost to the Minnesota Vikings 34-31. Wild kind of game. Rodgers was really good though. It's good to see him be back on track. I want to criticize the defense, but the more I thought about it, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna go first here because my Packers. No Rashawn Gary. Obviously we know Zadarius Smith's still out. No Jair. I don't want to say it's acceptable because obviously you want your team to play better, but I'm not shocked. It was bound to happen that we had a bad defensive game, and the Minnesota Vikings are talented. I mean, like we mentioned, while there are a few bounces away from being like 2-8, they're a few bounces away from being 8-2. They make that field goal against the Cardinals, and I think they also had another missed field goal as well earlier in the season. It's a good people. I think people have a completely different aspect of them. But yeah, it's just tough because it was a game we probably almost won, and I could have been saying something else. I could be talking about how great the Packers were because I was ready to say that. I was like, man, like the fact when we got that pick, I don't know if you saw it, the Darnell Savage pick on the last drive. I was like, okay, like this is it. Like we wrap this up. Like we're gonna wrap up the NFC, and no, it did not happen. He did not secure the catch, and then just almost caught another pick with Rasul Douglas right by his face on a back shoulder. He read it, and I think that goes to show Minnesota's still a little simplistic on offense, but we saw they're still talented enough where it doesn't really matter. but I still think it'll inhibit them at the end. But yeah, it was a good win for the Vikings. Just a game you didn't want to lose if you're either side because both sides played really well. But yeah, I don't know if you had anything else to add in regards to that.
Whenever that Darnell Savage thing happened, I sat there and I was like, oh man, classic Kirk Cousins. Like he's a great quarterback. He's going to ball out the whole game, but then he just sort of crumbles at the end against a big team in a big game. But then all of a sudden that gets overturned. The Rasul Douglas thing happens and they go down and they win the game. So I don't really have much else to say except for Justin Jefferson. He's a monster.
Yeah,
He just dominated this game, plain and simple. He took advantage of the fact that Jair Alexander was not there, and also like you said, Rashawn Gary wasn't there too, so there wasn't as much pressure as the Packers have had over the last few weeks, even despite some key guys missing. So yeah, I wouldn't say this is it's not a bad loss by any means. It's a divisional game oftentimes even against a divisional opponent who's having a bad season, which the Vikings are not, but say you lose to I don't know the Bears or something, right? Like that happens. It's divisional games. You know each other really well. You play each other twice a year, and sometimes you split them. So it was a fun game though.
yeah. And last point, I think desperation really factored in again. If the Vikings lose this game, they're 4-6, and the Packers are 9-3. And with 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 5 games, 5 weeks left, I mean, basically, the Packers win one more game. They have the division. But now, Vikings only 3 games behind, and they play each other one more time as well. So, Vikings still in that hunt to either get in the playoffs via the wild card or the division if, something crazy happens at Green Bay. And hey, it could, because we did lose Elton Jenkins, very good guard, who can play basically all 5 spots very well. Also for the season, ACL. So, and Bakhtiari's apparently had like a hiccup, not really a hiccup, but his injury they had to have a cleanup surgery or something. So he's going to be gone a little bit longer too. So yeah, good win for the Vikings. Going back to the AFC East, I'm not sure if many people are watching this game. I'm not going to lie, I didn't watch much of this game, but the Dolphins beat the Jets 24-17. Well, did you have any thoughts in regards to this game or care at all? Because I'll be honest, I really had very little
The
care about
only
this game,
the
except for
only
Jalen Waddle
notes
because I had him
the
in
only
fantasy.
the only notes I have are the rookies. They showed up big time. Elijah Moore balling out once again. I remember before the year I said that he could have like a Justin Jefferson like season in fantasy. Uh, I wouldn't say he's there in terms of like overall production, and we'll see if he can keep it up. But sort of similar in the way that like Jefferson kind of started slow, didn't get much playing time, and then once he got it, he really came on. And I think Elijah Moore's doing something similar, not to the peaks of Justin Jefferson, but the last 4 weeks, the guy's been amazing. Michael Carter had a solid game, but it just sucks that he got hurt. I think he's on IR. He's gonna miss. I don't know if he got officially placed on it, but he's missing, I think, about 3 weeks. So we'll see if he gets put on there. And then, like you said, Jalen Waddle. What did he do?
He had a rushing touchdown. They utilized him a little bit in the run game.
Yeah, 8
Um,
catches, 65 yards, and then that one, it
but
was a
it was like a
1 yard
sweep.
carry.
It was a
Yeah,
sweep, basically on the goal line. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, I really don't have much else to add in this game. I mean, we'll see how. It was a solid game from Tua. Efficient, 27 for 33, but don't want to. And it is the NFL, still tough teams, but it's the Jets. Not really taking that into account.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there for both teams. But Dolphins also staying alive in that playoff race, 4-7, still in the mix for the AFC playoffs. Now going back to the NFC, Philadelphia Eagles. They beat the New Orleans Saints 40-29. I mean, Eagles. It's looking like this run game is almost unstoppable because they were able to do it against the Saints. John, what were your thoughts in regards to this Eagles victory?
I was really shocked. I figured the Saints defense would put up way more of a fight when it came to stopping the ground game, but they had 242 rushing yards against them. Miles Sanders returned, and that was big for them. He averaged about 6 yards a carry, had 94 on the ground. Hurts had 69 yards. Jordan Howard had 63. Boston Scott had 16. Like, I mean, they're relying on the run game, and it's working for them. And they're quietly sneaking back up into the potential wild card situation. I don't know if they're like in a spot right now based on tiebreakers and all that stuff, but they're right there. So good win for the Eagles. That was a big one, especially since the Saints are a team that's in a very similar situation to them, fighting for a wild card spot. So that could get you a tiebreaker, potentially down the road. And then for the Saints, I'm starting to get concerned. I think they've lost 3 straight. And obviously it sucks you lose Jameis, but I don't know. I'm still waiting for Taysom Hill to get the call at quarterback. I mean, I know that Trevor Siemian has done a solid job for the most part, but I just think that Taysom and his running ability could just bring you maybe a little more consistency, because he's not gonna, light you up in the air, but he's still solid. I think maybe a little bit of a downgrade from Simeon in terms of passing, but his running ability and just the way that he can keep plays alive and have that extra threat, sort of like Jalen Hurts provides to the Eagles, I think it would really allow them to dive into a run centric offense, which with the amount of receivers that they have, like they have worse receiving talent than the Eagles do. So it'd make almost more sense for them to rely on that, especially when Kamara comes back. You could get Kamara, Ingram, Taysom all heavily involved, just like Hurts, Sanders, and Jordan Howard have been getting involved for the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I mean, I don't know why. And also, I think did they extend him again, or some
Yeah,
contract
they just
details
did.
came out. Yeah, so like it's like depends on. He gets like a
If he
base.
if he plays like quarterback,
He gets
it
like
can be up
15
to like
more million.
yeah,
I
it can
think
be
it's like
like up to
40 to start
90
with.
over 4 years or something if he plays quarterback. But then if
So
he plays a different position, like if he's just doing what he does now, which is not quarterback, it's like 40, 45, somewhere
like
around
40,
there.
45 guaranteed. Okay.
Yeah.
I think yeah, that's guaranteed regardless. So yeah, basically if he doesn't play quarterback. So anyways,
Yeah.
it's just weird. Like it seemed like the that Sean Payne was grooming him for this, and then like you would think with the how about I say Taysom, the Jameis Winston injury, like it would pave the way easy. Like okay, boom, insert. But it's for some reason it hasn't happened. Maybe he doesn't want to throw him out there because of the lack of receivers, and he doesn't want to just destroy his confidence or whatever for some reason. Regardless, I mean Eagles. You mentioned playoff race right now. They're ninth, right behind San Francisco. Granted, they haven't had their bye week. They have a tiebreaker over Carolina because they both have the same record. Um, at least this is according to ESPN.com. Could be wrong. Anyways, in regards to this game, though, yeah, like you mentioned, John, it was just Eagles. They found their formula. It's we're gonna run the ball, and then whenever it's obvious that you are trying to stop the run, we'll take a shot with Devonta or Quez, or even Dallas Goddard too, who's a solid tight end as well, and they also extended this week as well. But yeah, Philly building most success, kind of similar to Super Bowl year. Great offensive line. Mailata's been a good at tackle. Landon Dickerson's been getting more playing time at guard as well, and that's without Brandon. I don't think they've had Brandon Brooks either. So is he out for the? I'm not sure he's out for the rest of the season. But regardless, if he does come back, I mean their line's gonna be really good, even better. And then on the flip side, their defense kind of being creative. We're seeing Darius Slay make a few more plays. Maybe he's getting more comfortable there. And obviously, I think that front four for their defense is very key to that. Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat, those guys playing really well. So, yeah, I think the Saints just needed, like it with you, end of the day, Saints need to change that. I would like to see Taysom Hill, just something different. So we'll see. But yeah, good win for the Saints, or not for Saints, for the Eagles. Very critical as they chase the Cowboys in the division and also make their playoff push. We'll talk Cowboys in a few games, but keeping it in that division, another team staying alive, the Washington football team beating the Carolina Panthers at Carolina, ruining Cam's homecoming, 27-21. Taylor Heineke had a really good game. John, what were your thoughts in regards to this revenge game everywhere? Because Ron Rivera, getting a win at Carolina.
I thought it was a good game for both sides. Like I didn't really see anybody that I'm like, wow, they just sucked. I felt like Cam had a really solid performance for his first like full game back starting. 21 and 27, so he was efficient with it, and that was sort of like I said with DJ Moore, with Christian McCaffrey. I don't think he's going to be taking anything crazy deep. I think he had like 7 passes that were over 15 yards, and he completed 6 of them. So like he looked good on the ones that he did have, but for the most part, it was stuff short and medium, and and he used his legs. He had 10 carries, 46 yards, had a touchdown. So I thought he had a really good performance. But on the other side, Taylor Heineke just had a better one. 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. They had almost 200 yards rushing as a team. got J.D. McKissick involved, Antonio Gibson, even Jared Patterson got involved. And then Scary Terry had a really amazing game. And I think that was the key too, is that they didn't allow Stephon Gilmore or, whoever was, guarding him to shut him down. He had a big performance. So good win for Washington. And Scary Terry proved me wrong. I had him as a sit last week because I figured, Carolina defense would really focus in on him, but he had a great game.
I thought so too. I mean, I don't have much to add. I thought so as well, but it seems like Washington finding ways to run the ball. Maybe Antonio Gibson getting a little bit healthy. I know he's been dealing with the shin injury that he's playing through, and now they had a bye week. Well, I'm not sure it was last. I think it was week before last week. Nonetheless, they've increased his volume, so maybe maybe they feel that he's getting back to 100%, and they can lean on the run game a little more. But yeah, it was a good game. I'm mad I didn't get to watch it live. Had to kind of do the rewatch, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see these two teams going forward because they're both kind of an outside looking in as well in the NFC picture. Going on to another quick game we'll go over is the San Francisco 49ers. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 30-10. I don't think much of us were shocked there. Honestly, I'm just gonna throw it to you. Do you have anything to add in regards to that? I mean,
No.
yeah, I mean it's kind of went as expected. They ran all over them. Debo's really good. George Kittle had a good game. Jimmy G was solid. Jags, not much like Urban Meyer. Not gonna. I would say they're less talented, and then also in terms of X's and O's, Urban Meyer and that staff, I think they're behind Shanahan in that offense. So
I will say shout out to Trevor Lawrence for not turning the ball over as much as he did to start the year. I think he's starting to learn what passes he can and can throw.
yeah, yeah. Credit to I forgot about that. I just feel bad because like number one pick, and we're not a lot of
Yeah.
eyes on Jacksonville right now, unless you're in Jacksonville.
People sort of expected that though, because
Yeah.
it's the Jags. And they're
Anyways, but yes, going on to another former overall number one pick, Joe Burrow and the Bengals took care of business against the Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, 32-13. Yeah, it was one of the games that you were definitely right on. I was off on. I had the Raiders. You had the Bengals. John, why were you right?
Well, I mean, first off, about me being right, I was right about the fact that you were going to get 4 games out of the 7 and make it tied up again. So that happened. Anyway, one of the few games that I did get correct, though, this one, honestly, I just think the Bengals are simply the more talented team. I think I like Derek Carr. I think Joe Burrow is more talented than him. I like Josh Jacobs. I think Mixon's more talented than him. I think the Bengals receivers obviously blow the Raiders receivers away in talent. Darren Waller, obviously he's better than, CJ Uzma, but
He's one man.
just simply put, I think the Bengals have the more talented team. The defensively, the Raiders they haven't been good. They've allowed, I think, over 30 points in their last 3 games, which they've lost all 3. And that's just not going to cut it, especially when you lost your deep threat in Henry Ruggs. Teams don't really, respect Deshaun Jackson in the same way they did Henry Ruggs and his speed. And so it's just becoming increasingly difficult, I think, for the Raiders to really get things going offensively. I would like to see maybe they ran the ball a little bit more in this one. I feel like Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake were having success in the limited amount of times they did get the ball. But at the same time, it's what can you do? Because the Bengals put up points and they put them up early and often. They were controlling the clock because Mixon had a good game too. So yeah, Raiders, they're on a skid right now, and we'll see if they can fix it.
Yeah, I think it's important to factor in. Although at the time they dealt with the Gruden firing and then the Henry Ruggs situation, I think they won both those weeks. Afterwards,
They lost after the Ruggs thing.
one. But regardless, like they're like at some point that's got to mentally just everything with that wear down on you. And I think that's a little bit what happened here, but also Cincinnati a little more patient with the run game than they have been previously. Maybe they weren't expecting that, but yeah, I really don't have much else to add. The offense, like John mentioned, obviously Henry Ruggs need to be let go, but we're kind of starting to see offense is a little bit different. They don't have that deep threat. I know they brought in Deshaun Jackson, but he really hasn't done anything except for the Chiefs game where he had that huge fumble and I feel like that definitely he lost a lot of trust there. But other than that, I mean, no real receivers that scare you really anyway. I know there's a lot of hype around Bryan Edwards, and he's just been okay at best.
Yeah.
He
Remember when
hasn't.
Gruden said he was a combo of Randy Moss
That's
and
in
Terrell
Terrell
Owens?
Owens. He ain't that right now. Maybe in a few. I don't know. I like. I just so. Yeah, starting to see lack of weapons. I know that they kind of been rebuilding their old lines. They've had their goods and highs and lows, so I think that's been an important factor in. But critical win for the Bengals. They stay alive, and the Raiders kind of. I don't want to jinx it, but it just seems like they're slowly one of those teams that are slipping away, while others like the Colts and such are rising. This is one of those teams that started off really hot. Now it's starting to kind of fall apart slowly. So tough loss for the Raiders at the Death Star is what they call it at home. Now going on to what I don't, what I'm pretty sure John doesn't want to talk about. Chiefs beat the Dallas Cowboys 19-9. Definitely not the fireworks show we were all expecting. Granted, Amari Cooper out to COVID, and then CeeDee Lamb left really early in this game as well. So John, floor is yours, man. What happened here?
Well, I mean, everything just started to go wrong for Dallas. First off, Cooper unvaccinated, so he, didn't have any chance to play once he got the report, and he's also not going to be playing in this next game either because there's like 10 days that he has to clear. So he was out, but they knew that. But then it sucks that like right before halftime, Dak takes that shot to the end zone to CeeDee Lamb, intercepted, and I can't remember the corner. It was Charvarius Ward who picked it off, and the way that he fell, like he fell onto CD, and CD slammed his head onto the turf, got a concussion. So that didn't help. Then Zeke at one point he messed up his ankle, so he left for a while. Like there was just a lot of injuries. Tyron Smith obviously was missing in this game, and then also they chose to bench Connor Williams for Connor McGovern, which I had kind of been asking for, like since McGovern has been drafted, because I'm just not a big fan of Connor Williams. But maybe this just wasn't the game to do it, because we know that the interior of their offensive line has not been super strong outside of Zach Martin. But they face Chris Jones, and I think the Chiefs ultimately they were just the better team on the day. Both teams, it was really just a defensive battle. I mean, both Patrick Mahomes and Dak did not have very good games. And so at that point, it's just who's going to show up when it matters most. The Chiefs had the touchdown drive. The Cowboys never got one. And plain and simple, Chris Jones, I think, just left his mark all over this game. He had the first sack against Zach Martin in years. I think Zach's only allowed like one sack since like 2018. And I don't even know when that was. I think that might have been in 2019 when he allowed that. And so, or actually, no, that was in 2018 when he allowed it. Otherwise, that doesn't make sense. Anyway, so he got the first one against Zach in years, and then he just manhandled McGovern and beat on the other side. And I mean, it's gone unnoticed, but the addition of Melvin Ingram has allowed Chris Jones to be back on the interior of the line where he just really thrives. And we talked about this earlier in the year. Even I said it. That's where he needs to be. That's where he does his damage. That's where he makes an impact. And that's exactly what we saw in this game. He controlled the game, just plain and simple.
Yeah, I think that change has helped their defense a lot in the run game, especially too, because that was a big weakness at the beginning of the year. And Dallas did try to be patient with the run, but like you mentioned, got behind. 16 points, 16-3 at the end of the first half. And this Chiefs defense, I think we've seen in recent weeks, is more built to protect a lead than it is to just get cold hard stops against a balanced offense. Or so. But yeah, Chris Jones was a menace. And then in regards to Kansas City's offense, saw them be more patient with the run game this game. I mean, still would like to be a little bit more. They only had 26 rushes as opposed to 37 passes. Clyde's over there. Maybe because it was his first game back, they didn't want to overload his workload. But regardless, I mean, I always forget which Williams. I think this is Daryl Williams.
Daryl, yeah.
Yeah. Daryl's been solid the past weeks. I know he'd have a great game this game. But regardless, nice to see them incorporate Tyreek in the run game. Just have a little more short stuff where it's not all downfield. They were a little more patient this game. Yeah, that they've been more and more patient because I think the Cowboys played a lot more of that two safety shell. You know, prevent the big play happening. So Kansas City, good to see them be a little more patient and also winning in different ways besides their offense scoring, 40, 30 points and their defense just stay afloat. Um, so yeah, I don't really know how much else to add there. I'm
Just
not,
real quick,
yeah,
and I only want to say this because I've had multiple, I'm a Cowboys fan, so I have a lot of friends who are also Cowboys fans, and we talk about it. And I've had a few friends who have already started to panic. I don't know. It's just we've lost two out of our last three, and if those friends are listening, the only thing I want to say is I think it's a little bit ridiculous that we're panicking. We're 7-3. We have control of the division. And just simply put, and this is not an excuse for why we lost this game, but this is just the reality of the situation. We didn't have Amari Cooper, Tyron Smith, Randy Gregory, CeeDee Lamb for half the game, Zeke for about a quarter, DeMarcus Lawrence. Like there was a lot of players that were missing that when we face a team like that later in the year, ideally they would be back and maybe we could put up a better fight. I'm not going to guarantee that we're going to win. Who knows, how we look when those guys are back, but just simply put, I think it's a bit ridiculous that I have friends who are panicking when two of our three losses are against the two teams that played in the last year by a point margin of 12 points. Like that, I don't know. If you told me that going into this year, I'd be like, wow, we played the Bucks and Chiefs amazingly if we only lost by 12 points combined. So yeah, I wouldn't panic. Obviously, there's some eye-opening stuff. Like, I don't know. McCarthy they received in the first half, and then they I think they just wanted to come out and make a statement in the opposing team's arena. They didn't do that. The Chiefs then capitalized and got a touchdown, and then all of a sudden you're playing from behind. And they get the ball back in halftime, and Dak, he threw that interception like right before halftime. They chose not to take time out. I don't know exactly why. Maybe they just didn't want them to be able to make substitutions or something like that. I don't know the logic behind it. But Dak, he rushed it, took a shot downfield that wasn't there, threw an interception. So anyway, there was moments they had in this game, and they just didn't capitalize on them. But to any Cowboys fan out there, do not panic. Sure that this, there's still plenty of opportunities to grow, and you have to improve if we're going to, win a playoff game. But don't sit here and do what some of my friends have done and say the season is over.
yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep it a little more simple. I mean, the loss, where is it? The loss where Dak first came back, like we mentioned that episode to the Broncos. Hadn't practiced in like what 3 weeks basically. Like literally his first game back, hard to do
And
that. And
that
then
was just drops, and Dak missed
yeah,
some easy throws. Like
and
there was
then
a lot of just execution issues now.
yeah, and then this week, I mean, basically my point is your main strength's your offense, your passing game, and then one game Dak wasn't fully back, and then now he's still kind of finding his way back after being gone for a bit, and then like you mentioned, no Amari Cooper, who's one of the more reliable number ones, and then CD also gone for most of the game, so all of a sudden your main strength you're kind of handicapped. I know Michael Gallup too. He just got back off IR. He's like second week back, so he's still adjusting. And now all of a sudden, hey Michael, now you have to run Amari's routes. Number one, even though we thought it was gonna be CD doing it this game, now you have to do it. It's just a lot of adjustment on the fly. I know every team deals with it, but yeah, I'm certainly not panicked about the Cowboys going forward in the long haul. I am interested though, whenever y'all do play the Eagles, because that's gonna be a very interesting matchup. But nonetheless,
Smoked them last time, but we'll see. They didn't run the ball
they
last
didn't
time.
run
That
the
was
yeah.
the thing.
It's like I don't know why they just discovered now that they can run the ball. So yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
interesting stylistically because I think they're gonna try to run the ball, control clock, bleed, make it a real limit your possessions and kind of like what y'all used to do with DeMarco Murray,
Yeah.
basically in that offense. But anyways,
Random thing I will add though, Micah Parsons, he's a beast.
yeah, Michael Parsons is really good. I mean, right now running away with defensive rookie of the year and obviously becoming one of the better defensive players in the league. I think he's everything I wanted in Roquan Smith. Not that Roquan Smith's bad. I just had a thought the other day. I don't know why I was thinking Bears. I was like, Roquan Smith's been good, and he's gonna be a very good like franchise guy, but he's never gonna. He's just looking like he's not gonna be a stud. Anyways,
He doesn't have like that impact like Parsons does, where you like just notice him every play.
so anyways, but yeah, Michael Parsons over looking like a star in the making. But now going on to the last afternoon game, Arizona Cardinals and Colt McCoy end up beating the Seattle Seahawks 23-13. It's a good thing I didn't change my pick because when I heard Kyler was out, I was like, I should probably change my pick, but I rolled with it. I was also a little lazy. Um, anyways,
I almost did that for the next game, but anyway.
yeah, wild. Anyways, John, what were your thoughts in regards to this NFC West showdown here between the Cardinals and Seahawks?
Plain and simple, good job on the Cardinals. Once again, backup quarterback. Edmonds isn't there, Hopkins isn't playing, and they're finding ways to win. It just shows they have a lot of talent. I've always been a big fan of Colt McCoy as a backup. He's won many big games over the years when he's had to fill in. He's never had like extended time, like playing a whole season or anything since his time in Cleveland. But I think when he has those short spurts and he's got talent around him, he can make things happen and he can be reliable. And that's what he showed here. Meanwhile, for Seattle, just they're in a hole that I don't know they can really come out of. At this point, I think they're probably out of the playoffs. And we'll have to see what happens with Russell Wilson, because we know the last offseason after finishing 12-4, there was the whole stuff of him wanting out and his agent leaked teams that he'd be okay traded to. And I was still under the belief at that time that it was simply that he wanted more power in the organization when it came to who they acquired through the draft and through free agency. But at the same time, what happens if you finish the season, with 4 or 5 wins? Because that's looking like that could be a real reality here, especially with Russ. Like, he didn't have a terrible game like the Packers, the performance against the Packers, but it still wasn't much better. 200 passing yards, no touchdowns, just not really using his legs either. 2 carries for 2 yards. Just plain and simple. I'm worrying about the Seahawks. Now, Russ did look better, and Tyler Lockett, I think, was the direct recipient of that. He had a really good performance, but ultimately 13 points against Cardinals team that has a lot of backups playing. I don't know. Seahawks are not as talented.
Sorry, and I was looking up something too. They don't have the first round pick this year. This is the second pick that goes for Jamal Adams. So
That's tough.
so those New York Jet fans, they're hyped. They're about to have 2 first round picks in the high picks. But yeah, in regards to the actual game, like John mentioned, we saw more of last week. It's just if Russell's not 100% not making magic, because he can't really do that right now. It's obvious from what I've seen. I think it's just I'm not sure if he's hesitant or doesn't even want to try to or can't. Not really just can't push the ball really downfield. I think he only did it once or twice. I know there's once he connected with Lockett. But yeah, there needs to be more creativity in Seattle, like we mentioned before. It's too run the ball, and then third down. Oh, Russell, you gotta it's 3rd and 8. You gotta make a play now, or it's late in the fourth quarter. Now we'll pass. We'll be a pass heavy team, but we're behind 2 scores, and the other team knows we're passing. So, I think the Seahawks are dead in the water in terms of the playoffs. I think they're out. Their division's just too good. NFC's just too good, and I'm interested to see what happens. I know I say that for like every team, but like especially if Russell leaves, they poured. He was a big investment in their offense. Like, will Pete Carroll stay? Do you like all of a sudden you're like Jamal Adams, your only cornerstone, and DK Metcalf? I'm not saying they're not bad, but
If Russell leaves, I think Pete's probably gone too.
I
I
mean,
mean,
if I was Pete,
I
I would
love
go.
Pete Carroll, but even then, like, they just haven't really necessarily had the success that they had, earlier in his tenure when they had that elite defense with the Legion of Boom. So
And
I would
I think
imagine even for him, he might want to move on.
they got to move on from their GM too. Just you've missed on draft picks. Chris Ballard, not Chris Ballard. He's been good, but Rashad Penny a couple of years ago, he's barely played. I know injuries are always kind of unforeseen, but even then, that was a reach. And then you hit on DK Metcalf, but not many other. Even their second, third round picks, those guys are usually the unsung heroes, usually solid starters. They haven't. The offensive line's still not good. Their defense is still, like they've been relying on, Jamal Adams and just a few other veterans to fill in. But you can't always rely on the veterans off the bargain bin every year. So I feel like a lot of change will be happening for Seattle soon. Not just Russell Wilson, but maybe they offload Lockett and Metcalf. Who knows? But yeah, in regards to this season, I think we're both on the same page. They're done in terms of making the playoffs. So Hopefully they can win to save the draft pick. I don't know, or make it not as good for the Jets. But now going to, I think this is the most exciting game of the weekend, and it's unfortunate because I did fall asleep. Like at the beginning of the fourth quarter, I took like a 6 minute nap and I woke up and it was just like that Philson, like what the heck's going on here? Los Angeles Chargers, they pull out a win against the Pittsburgh Steelers 41-37. Big Ben played this game. Pittsburgh exploded in the fourth quarter for 27 points. Almost was in the lead in the final few minutes and then a blown coverage. And then it was just wild. John, what were your thoughts on the Sunday Nighter?
This was definitely an amazing game. I think this is the best one of the day. It was just really exciting, especially the way that it ended. Up there with like the Packers and the Vikings one. Maybe I would just say this was more exciting because I actually got to watch it. I watched the Packers through Red Zone. But regardless, it was weird. I almost changed my pick, like you said. Didn't end up doing it. After the news came out that Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, and Joe Hayden were all going to be out of this game, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like three of the Steelers' four best defensive players. Like that's terrible. Like they might get destroyed. But I just I don't know. Maybe I was lazy. I don't know. I stuck with it, and they covered by like a half a point, 1.5 points,
One
or
and a
something
half.
like
It was
that.
5.5 because I was like, oh, I forgot the spread, but I was like, okay, Chargers won. I think I might have won that one. And then I saw the spread. I was like, I did not win that one.
Yeah, but I mean, shockingly, this became an offensive shootout. And then on the Steelers side, I think the more surprising part to me was that it wasn't because of the run game; it was the air attack with Big Ben, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool. Like, I mean, they had what, like 8 different receivers get involved in
I
this,
think Pat
and
Fryermuth, their tight end, who's been balling pretty, so he got more involved too this game.
uh,
Okay, never mind. Yeah, he had 4 for 11,
I
but
mean,
I mean,
he had 7 targets, though. It was the
yeah,
third most targeted player for them. Just didn't turn into much. But regardless, I mean, yeah, it was a shootout. It was a really fun game. And ultimately, the team that came out on top was going to be the team that had the better quarterback because that's typically what happens in shootouts. And so, Justin Herbert and that offense, they made plays when they needed to down the stretch, and they got the job done. Would have been interesting to see how this game would have gone with Watt, Fitzpatrick, Hayden, because maybe the Steelers even sneak out with a win. Because obviously those three guys are massive difference makers. Um, but regardless, I mean, yeah, Chargers they looked impressive in this one. I will say though, and this it didn't matter anyway, but that one fourth down call at the very end of the game, I don't know if you watched it or have heard about it. They were like on their own 30 with like it was very late in the fourth. Like this was like right before I think the Steelers went down, they kicked the field goal or something. I'm actually gonna pull it up so that I don't misquote this, the actual drives. So yeah, they went for it on fourth down, and this was very late into the fourth quarter, like 3 minutes remaining, and it was on their own 34-yard line. Didn't get it, 4th and 1. Very strange play call. Steelers take a field goal to take the lead. It was a tie ball game, and there's still time left. And if they score, you can try to answer. But very strange call. Um, Steelers get a field goal, and then that's when the blown coverage play happens on their next drive. They get the massive touchdown, then they get the ball back. So it didn't matter anyway, but really ballsy play from Brandon Staley that did not work out, even though they still won the game. Not sure why you do that, unless maybe your logic is you don't trust your defense to get a stop, and so you don't want to give them more time, more yards to just drive down the field and win. I don't know.
um, only thing I can think of is like they'd moving the ball on. Maybe just more faith in the offense because, like you mentioned, I think it was obvious that they were missing those three guys, Pittsburgh's defense. Because yeah, I'm with you. I think Pittsburgh might even win this game if they have those three guys. Because I mean, we saw it on that one play. I mean, I don't think Joe Hayden makes a mistake of falling for a pump fake when he has that deep half and just letting Mike Williams run by him. You know what I mean?
And
Or
even
Minka
Minka, like he
Fitzpatrick.
might
I
somehow be
mean,
able to sprint from the other side of the field and
yeah,
make a play.
because I think Terrell Edmonds was playing up top, but Terrell's more of like intermediate in the box kind of safety. So
And then even then, TJ Watt, maybe he gets a sack before the throw even gets off.
yeah, because I mean that's what iced the game for the Chargers was they had two straight sacks on Pittsburgh's final drive, like on
Hmm.
first down it was Kyle Fackrell, and then 2-minute warning, and then he gets sacked again by Joey Bosa, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 29.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's just the biggest thing in regards to to Pittsburgh. Like I'm not too. It's kind of like we mentioned with the Packer game. Like I'm not too panicked. Like you're missing a lot of key pieces, and it was actually. And I know we don't like moral victories, but it was encouraging going forward that you saw that Big Ben could carry a little bit more load. I'm not saying you go back to being a pass first offense. I honestly think they should still stick with the run style, and I was surprised they strayed away from it, especially towards the end.
I
Because
think Najee got hurt at one point in this game.
okay,
I
I
can't
forgot.
remember if he came back, but like he got blown up by two people.
Okay, that happens. So, but yeah, in regards to this one, I mean, I like that we saw Herbert's. I think he didn't do this much, and I thought that he tucked the ball and ran more instead. He used his mobility. I think it was nice to see that because so long for a while I was like, is he just gonna be a pocket guy in the NFL? Like that's fine. Like he'll be good. Like, he can still move around. I just in college he did a lot more movement. Granted, maybe because it was asked of him, but it was good to see him just kind of freelance a little bit more like that. But I'm not going to necessarily say that Chargers offense is fixed because they're struggling the past few weeks because like we just mentioned, common theme: Steelers missing a lot of pieces and a lot of very key because Minka is basically they can do a lot of creative stuff with Minka and Joe Hayden because of their experience and knowledge. And obviously, because you have TJ Watt, then you also add that the clock's going to be ticking quicker for the quarterback. So, the win for the Chargers, though, they desperately needed that to keep going in this race. So, once again, like we said, it's the reason I'm saying it's so crazy because there's no clear favorite. Like we mentioned, like we're at the point where we might say the Patriots are the best team in the AFC right now. Like you know what I mean? Like it's gotten to that point, and we're not even sure. It could be a different team. For a while, it was the Titans. Um,
The AFC is so
and even
wild
the
right
NFC, it's
now.
like not even clear like who's like we saw Green Bay lose this week, and then the Bucks. Okay, maybe the Bucks, but we've seen them had some games against Washington where they lose, and we'll talk about them in a second. But there's just no clarity. There's a lot of just
Yeah.
mixed upness right now, and I like it. It's exciting, but it's tough to predict games and fantasy and stuff. So
The AFC is so wild right now that like the best team could even like and by the end of the year, the team who like wins the AFC could be a team right now that's not even sitting in a playoff spot because of how competitive it is. Like, I mean, the Browns, the Colts, the Raiders, like they're all kind of in that little bubble spot for like maybe they can make the playoffs, maybe not. And then you got the Steelers, the Bills, the Chargers, all in those playoff spots right now as like wild card teams. But even them, like all of them, could maybe finish. Like it, honestly, there's like 10 teams in the AFC that could do it.
just to paint a picture before we go to the Monday night game, if the playoffs were to start right now, like because now the games are over, the Bills will be the 7th seed. By the way, the Chargers will be the 6th seed, Bengals 5 seed, Chiefs 4, Patriots 3, the Ravens the 2 seed, and the Tennessee will still be the 1. So just to paint a picture of how, and then NFC, I mean the Cardinals are now back up top, Packers 2, Bucks 3, Cowboys 4. But then once like after the Cowboys is when the NFC really gets muddled more because then you have Rams, Vikings, Saints. Those are the next 3 in, and then Niners, Eagles, Panthers, like outside looking in. So, and then
And
also,
even Washington, like they've got 2 wins in a row. Like they're still in it.
so, anyways, like we mentioned, going to that final game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Monday Nighter. Tampa Bay took care of business, beat the New York Giants 30-10. Um, I mean, I really don't have much else. I'll throw it to you first. What are your thoughts in regards to this one? But I feel like we're gonna have a similar analysis here.
Uh, I don't know. I don't feel like Tampa was like super impressive, even though they like got the job done. It feels like I don't want to. This might sound like I'm discrediting them, even like discrediting their win last year, but they sort of feel like the same team as like last year's regular season. Like they have very similar struggles. Their secondary isn't amazing, and they're young and inexperienced. Their run game really isn't super impressive, which we saw last year in the playoffs. It was totally different. Leonard Fournette really got going, but as right now, I think they're like bottom 5 in the league in rushing attempts this year. So that's a thing. Like I don't know, they don't feel too wildly different from last year's regular season team, which I guess is to be expected when they are basically the exact same roster and coaching staff. So I don't have much to say about Tampa because they were supposed to win this game by a lot, and that's what they did. For the Giants, they fired Jason Garrett today. That's big news, and I'm not surprised. There's a play late in this game where they had three different receivers who all ended up in the exact same spot in the middle of the field at parts of their route. And so there's just kind of like a cluster of like three receivers, three defenders, just kind of all standing there in the same spot, and just not like, yeah, it just became confusion in the middle. And then obviously that play I think resulted in a sack. So like, what do you? I don't know. I don't feel like Jason Garrett necessarily does a great job keeping up with like the modern NFL. And even the way that you talked about Mike McCarthy back when he was fired from Green Bay, like maybe he just doesn't need to be calling plays anymore. I know for the Cowboys, McCarthy does not call the plays. It's Kellen Moore. He maybe even he understood that he's just not fully there with the modern NFL. And I feel the same way about Jason Garrett. So not shocked that he was fired. But that being said, I saw a tweet that was kind of funny, that was sort of talking about this, and it said the Giants firing Jason Garrett is like an entire shopping mall is on fire, but they spray the water hose on the Auntie Anne's pretzel shop. Um, like, does it really stop the entire fire? Absolutely not. There's still so much going on. I know that Tyrone, our friend who's a Giants fan, he wants Joe Judge gone. I think David Gettleman should be fired as a GM. The issues they had 4 years ago are the exact same issues they have now. We don't know anything about the quarterback, and who really is going to be the long term option, because Daniel Jones to me isn't. Their offensive line is still a struggle. Sure, they have talented playmakers on the outside, and it's Saquon Barkley, but like, how much can you really do with them when you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a line, your offensive play going is not very good. They still don't have great linebackers, and it sucks because Blake Martinez got hurt, but that's been an issue for Giants for a long, like a decade plus. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like when your GM has had 4 years and you're basically in the exact same spot, he's got to go. I'm not. I know that Giants fans probably want Joe Judge out. I'm not quite ready to say that he should go, just because it's hard to win in the league when your quarterback sucks and you don't have an offensive line, all these kind of things. But at the same time, I haven't necessarily seen him do anything impressive that's made me think he deserves to keep the job. So I don't know. There's just a lot going on with the Giants, and I know that we're talking about their game for Monday, but I feel like the overarching narrative has just been their team.
Yeah. And it'll be, I think if there is a time for change, it will be this offseason because they do have two first round picks. Probably will be early since the other one's the Bears pick. So yeah, I mean, it's a very lucrative position slash job if they do get rid of GM and head coach. So